First of all, the mortgage break has to happen. It's absolutely unacceptable that the people who will be hit hardest economically, losing income or employment, will then also potentially have some of them banks crawling all over their back, adding to their pressure and stress. You know, when people talk about protecting mental health, let's be clear what that is in many cases. Often mental health is about the stress of not being able to pay your mortgage or your rent or your bills and the uncertainty of not possibly losing your home. There's nothing that will damage your mental health more than that. Now, if we're all in it together, Taoiseach, to my mind, you have to move might and main to ensure that the banks are not crawling all over the backs of people or loading debts up during the current period. And if we can bring in emergency legislation to bail out banks, as we did a few years ago, we can bring in emergency legislation or do whatever is necessary in order to tell the banks you're not going to load up debt or harass people during possibly one of the most difficult periods of their life. You've got to do that. Otherwise, you will wreck the sense of social solidarity we need. And similarly, simply lifting or reimposing the ban on evictions during level 5 restrictions is not good enough. Because that means notices to quit can be issued, and then what, 4 or 5 weeks before Christmas, there'll be a slew of evictions. That's totally unacceptable. Thank you, Deputy. Right, so you have to do something about that,
Deputy Boyd Barrett, the same issue on the mortgage break, the lockdowns. We don't want people in a long-term overloading of debt. Of course, we don't. The evictions issues will be dealt with, and we'll see, the ministers will see what we can do again to make sure that people with mortgages are not put under stress and anxiety, and that their situation can be helped. In terms of earlier issues, if I have, which I didn't get to,
2 minutes.
The student nurses, I'll engage with the HSE in relation to that and with the Minister for Health in terms of student nurses working on the wards in the current context, as they were earlier, should be paid in accordance with the agreement that was arrived at earlier in the year, and I'll follow that up. And again, you used the phrase COVID on the cheap. I mean, 20% of our normal budget, has been borrowed this year to deal with COVID-19. We're at a deficit now of well over 20 billion, 21 billion. Will be higher now because of going into lockdown. I mean, we need some accurate, precise language from time to time. But I know you look. It's one of your great strengths, the hyperbole, the polemic, and all of that. But there comes a time. No one can say that we're doing COVID on the cheap. The health service is getting 4 billion of an allocation in this budget. 2 billion for COVID, 2 billion to permanently embed improvements into the service. That's not COVID on the cheap. We've built the testing, tracing capacity from 0. It's not on cheap labour either. It's not on cheap labour. The health service isn't on cheap labour. It's not, actually. It's not on cheap labour. Look at the entirety of the workforce. It's not on cheap labour. That's another myth and fallacy to put forward. And equally, I would say that our objective is to learn lessons from COVID and accelerate improvements and reforms in our health service delivery, around community delivery, around rehab, around home care-based provision, and community diagnostic, and keeping people out of hospital as long as we possibly can, and move more into the prevention, primary care and community care sides. That is the objective of government, whilst also increasing capacity in the rehab community hospital beds and in the acute hospital situation. And I think the youth unemployment issue Deputy Barry raised. I think 200 million is a very sizable allocation. I take your point on quality. That has to be looked at, and not just looked at, but proper mechanisms have to be in place to make sure that the quality of the provision is of a high order. Now, a lot of that 200 million, there's a very good scheme to incentivise apprenticeships. And I think historically in the country we had a very good apprenticeship system. What are now the Institutes of Technology, in my view, were great providers of apprenticeship training. The ETBs are now leading it. And I want to get good structured quality training that would get people opportunities in employment.
Thank you. The next group of questions, Deputy Lou MacDonald. Taoiseach. Yeah. 9 to 10.
I propose to take questions 9 and 10 together. Notwithstanding the impact of COVID-19 on all aspects of the social and economic life of our country, we've been working hard to implement the commitments in the programme for government across a wide range of issues in all government departments. A Cabinet Committee structure comprising 10 Cabinet Committees with specific responsibility for a range of issues has been established to support the achievement of these objectives. These Cabinet Committees are as follows: Government response to COVID-19, economic recovery and investment, housing, health, environment and climate change, social affairs and equality, education, Europe, Brexit and Northern Ireland, government coordination. Cabinet Committees meet regularly consistent with the provisions in the programme for government, and further Cabinet Committees will be established by government if necessary. A range of social and economic issues which impact on the programme for government commitments and which cut across many departments have been considered and progressed through the Cabinet Committee on the Government Response to COVID-19, leading to the development of Ireland's national plan in response to COVID-19, the roadmap for reopening society and business, and Resilience and Recovery 2020-2021, Plan for Living with COVID-19, which was launched recently. Issues considered in each of these plans have included social and societal impacts, employee impacts and business continuity, supports for individuals and businesses, economic and budgetary implications, modelling, communications and international response measures. Other programme for government commitments which have been progressed in the last 4 months or so include ongoing monitoring and management of the impact of COVID-19 and the provision of both COVID and non-COVID healthcare to ensure sufficient capacity, utilise new technology, support vulnerable groups and develop new pathways of care. The HSE's winter plan for this year is supported by the allocation of an additional €600 million, will deliver essential healthcare in a COVID-19 environment whilst advancing the goals of flying to care through prioritisation of primary care and community services. The 24th plenary meeting of the North-South Ministerial Council was held in Dublin Castle on the 31st of July. It provided the new Irish Government and the restored Northern Ireland Executive the opportunity to meet formally for the first time and exchange views on a wide range of issues of mutual interest and concern, including COVID-19 and Brexit. A Shared Island unit has been established in my department and its work is underway. The provision of a Shared Ireland Fund in Budget 2021 with a planned €500 million to be made available out to 2025. This fund will provide resources to deliver on our commitment to build a shared island, underpinned by the Good Friday Agreement. The fund will foster new investment and development opportunities on a north-south basis and support the delivery of key cross-border infrastructure initiatives set out in the programme for government. The July Job Stimulus was launched in July and is made up of over 50 measures, includes over €4 billion of direct expenditure, €1 billion of taxation measures to directly support businesses, as well as €2 billion in credit guarantees. A unit to help coordinate future social dialogue has been established within my department. This unit will seek to create new models of sectoral engagement with a wide range of stakeholders across civil society. It's part of the economic division of my department, which is already involved in dialogue with the social partners. A number of key climate action commitments have been achieved, including the publication on the 7th of October of the draft text for the Climate Action and Low Carbon Development Bill 2020, which will set the country on course to become climate neutral by 2050. Work is underway to have the bill enacted this year. I have further measures, if you want me to read them into
You might have time afterwards, Taoiseach, when you come back in again.
Thank you.